let's go to, thanks for that, Mark. Let's go to next person, Steve Early. You had a question?
Yeah, good afternoon, or good morning, I guess, where you are. So I put a custom button on the case object, and it's a JavaScript. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to allow our application engineers to send an email back to the customer that basically says, we got your case and we're going to look into it as soon as possible, something like that. And I have all that working. The issue is that when the case comes in, it could come in from one of 4 existing email addresses that we have out in the field that customers are used to using. And so I've done some workflow rules so that it looks at the email address that it's coming in from, and it says, okay, this came from the US support email address, therefore we're going to assign it to this queue, and I'm going to change the from address to the email to Salesforce, what do you call it? It's the incoming address, the one you have to verify. An email to case, what's it called? The delivery address? No, I got to look at it. I'm not making sense, I know.
Are you talking about making sure that the email address is verified?
Yeah, no, it's been verified, so it comes in and it goes into the email to case queue. But yeah. I look at the address that it comes in from and use that as the origin. And then I want to change the from field in Salesforce so that when they click this button, it comes from the case address, not their personal address. Does that make sense?
Case address? You mean like you're putting a custom email field in the case record?
Yeah, no, when a case comes in, you want to respond to that case, but they don't want their personal email going out to the customer.
Oh, you're talking about the actual, the organization-wide email that you've set up.
Yes, I did set up an organization-wide email
and you want to use that.
Right. So what's popping up is I can't seem to populate that as an email field so that it goes to the top of the list. So what's happening is I'm populating that field with what I think the address should be, but when they send the email out, it's still coming from them. If they look through the pick list of from addresses, the organization-wide email address is in there, but it doesn't go to the top of the list so that they just have to click it. They have to click the pull-down list and look for that email address. I don't know if I'm making sense. But
yeah, I think you're talking about the order of the email address in that pick list field that's popping up.
Correct. And I actually pasted the code on the MVP Office Hours site, and Jeremiah Don tried to answer, but I'm not sure that what he proposed is solving my problem.
Okay. I don't know because you're building this through a button.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. This is like a question for like Brian Kwong or somebody that's more like technical than I am.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I've definitely, this is Jared, I've seen this come up before, and we've ran into it many times. Yeah, you can't, and I think we've had to do, I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, I know that in the past to accomplish this, we've had to do essentially like a customized list, if you will, in order to default that from address and make it work.
I'm trying to default it back to the routing name that it came in from so that it keeps the continuity of the case emails going back and forth like they're coming from that routing name and not from the employee themselves. Yeah, and I've looked all over the web trying to resolve this, and I'm coming to the conclusion there may not be a resolution.
Yeah, I know, like I said, from our experience, I've seen other consultants that have had that same problem and have had to do some development to get around it right now. So I was going to try to look up what we had done before. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like a custom list that you had to use in order to do it. It was kind of a weird workaround because you just, like you said, you just can't default it right now.
Right.
So.
All right. Well, thanks for the thoughts.
I've done something similar to this, and I'm trying to think of how I resolved it because it's been a while. It's possible I use a template, so when you click the button, it will default to a template, and that template could be real simple. I mean, it could have nothing really in it except the
Well, I have the template
design.
all made, and the template is working. That's fine. It's just that when they push the button and the email form comes up, it has what they look at the email address. It's supportus@ourcompanyname.com, and they say, that's the address that this should come from. But then they click the send button, and it goes out from them. And
so even
they don't know to click down and pick the organization-wide email address that I have set up for the U.S. And if they do that, then it works fine. Everything works.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's the ordering.
Yeah, and I just posted an idea. I actually just saw on the Idea Exchange. It's under
nice.
product team. It's under product team review.
Okay.
And there's a comment on there about email case premium. It looks like that does it for right now. But yeah, it looks like there's a lot of traction there.
Yeah. Okay.
You might also try looking at some of the apps. I've used Conga a lot for email replies, where you can kind of tailor who it's coming from and everything. And I'm trying to think, just from the top of my head, I'm trying to think if that works. I don't know if anyone else has had experience with that, just because it's been a while for me.
Okay. Well, thanks for your thoughts.
Yeah, no problem. All right, who else has a question? Don't be shy. No one needs any help? 22 minutes left if anybody has anything.
I'd like to add on to the question about reports.
Yeah.
One thing that I do, because I'm curious as well, is I will log in as the user, go to the reports and see what the last reports are that they ran, because it would be in their recent report history, and then look at those reports, because that means they looked at them recently. There's something of value in there. It's not fast by any stretch of the imagination. It's a very manual and tedious process, but at least it gives you insight.
Julie, you have your hand raised. What's up?
Oh, well, since nobody's asking questions, I'll ask a small one.
Go ahead.
On processes, again, I'm looking at the help text, or whatever they can call that, help and training, and it says that if you are deploying a process through the metadata API or change sets, blah, blah, blah. So last time I looked, you couldn't deploy a process through a change set. Is that changed? Can you deploy a process through a change set?
I imagine that
You
you can
can.
deploy it through Ant at the very least.
There
It
is
uses the same technology. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, it's Ant uses the same technology. So if you know Ant, I bet you could use Ant.
I do not know Ant.
Yeah, that's a learning curve. Trust me.
Okay, so this is Susan. I don't know Ant. I can spell it. I think. Yeah, so if you're going to your change set, you'll find the process listed under flows.
Oh,
There you go.
isn't that lovely? Thank you.
I know. Yeah, it's a secret. Don't tell anyone.
All right. Go through my list of why God why items while I have you guys on the line. See if I can find anything else. I only learned about this yesterday, so I haven't had time to get my laundry list together.
No worries. Who else has a question?
Jared, can you hear me? It's Rob Kaplan.
Yeah, go ahead, Rob.
Hey, thanks, Jared. Hi, everybody. So not looking so much for a how-to, just more like a point to. The clone button is hampered by the fact that if I clone a closed and approved opportunity, and the reason I am cloning it is because first the opportunity is what we call a pilot transaction. If the pilot goes well, customer says, let's go full guns. Give me 12 months. Then he's going to a full contract. So if I clone the approved and closed pilot, what I get is an approved and closed real opportunity. Right. And what I was thinking was maybe the new flow is the way for me to go. So that I'm not looking for the how-to. I'm looking for kind of validation of methodology and maybe some point-tos to some guides I can read up on and get a little more familiar with this, if indeed that's the way to go. So in other words, I would only carry over, let's say, the account name, their address, the billing contact, the signing contact, stuff like that. But I would leave open, open for new data entry, the new close date. And it would not be in an approved status. It would be, null for approval and that kind of thing.
I was thinking the process builder in combination with flow in there. I don't know. I've been thinking about it for months now, but I haven't really done it yet.
Okay. I would say process builder, except that process builder usually fires off of something happening.
That's true. The flow allows you to create a button.
Right.
Right.
Well, it would be someone clicking that button saying, move forward. I forgot what the terminology was you had, but they're going in there and saying, we are going to move it from pilot to real. So you have a checkbox in there on that record, so they check the box and click save.
Or like maybe even a stage field that says that this was like if it's a pilot transaction, then you can have a stage that says, pilot to, I don't know, real or whatever you want to call it, and you can omit that from the forecast so it doesn't show up on the forecast, but at least you have a real stage, so then you can kind of track like how many of those opportunities actually ended up going through and, really ending up as real opportunities. Like, do you have a process where even though it's approved that it might not turn into an active real opportunity or an active real transaction?
Yeah, let me see if I can answer your question, Deepa, and then comment on the point that you're making. We do have, it is a transaction when it's approved. So in my mind, I'm thinking of it as two transactions. Did we win the pilot? Yes or no? So therefore, I want the opportunity object to handle that transaction. And then during the sake of the pilot, we want to see a forecast, or I should say a pipeline of open opportunities. And one of those open opportunities would be the full contract, 12 months, for somebody's 3-month pilot. So we're able to see that right now because I'm manually doing the cloning myself. But as we go to scale, I can't be bothered with doing these clones one by one and cleaning them up.
So let me ask you this, because this raises another question in my head, is that you're manually creating an opportunity while a pilot is going on?
No, I'm using the clone button and then I'm cleaning it up. So for example, I track on the opportunity certain stage change dates, so I can get some intra-stage duration data. So when I do the clone, I don't want all those dates coming over on the clone. So
No, I got it. But at what point because what I heard you say is you said that
sorry.
you want to see those like potential opportunity on the forecast. That means you're creating the clone earlier than it's closed, or you're creating it after the pilot is closed. At what point do you create the clone?
Actually, that could be either one. We could create the full contract clone during pilot still open, or we could create it after pilot closed. That does not.
So in that scenario, then you're better off having a button that says create a, whatever term you just called it, and I sometimes have a really short-term memory lapse. But basically, you're better off creating a button because when you decide to create it, whether it's closed, whether the pilot is closed or not, you're giving the user the option to clone that. But instead of using clone button, you use the, create new real opportunity, whatever you call it, with the data inherited what you need. And
Correct.
One way to do that is also a URL hack. If all you're really looking for is pre-populating some of the fields, you could do a URL hack from the existing opportunity, pre-filling some of the values from the current opportunity, and then just saving it.
Yeah, I actually tried that a little bit, but I'm not a veteran of URL hacks, so I ran into a wall there. Not that you're suggesting it's a bad one, and I will certainly look at that further. But for the purpose of this question today, I was just trying to see what my methodological options are.
Well, if you need help, post your code on the group, and we'll see if we can help you out.
Yeah.
So
I really
got
appreciate
one question. I got one question that I think will kind of form exactly how this should happen. When you're cloning, do you have opportunity products?
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Well,
Sorry.
that's brilliant because the reason I'm chuckling is because over in the sandbox, I'm designing the products now. Yes. Up to this point, we have not used products. My time horizon for products would be in the next 30 days. I expect to roll out products. Yeah.
Okay.
So then you're going to need, need a different solution.
It's going to have
URL hack is not going to work.
Yeah, because you're going to have something that can basically determine, okay, well, there are X products here, and I need to clone them as well with their pricing.
No, I wouldn't make that assumption. No, I wouldn't make the assumption because I've been very granular with my products. So in other words, I have product A pilot, and I have product A full contract. So during the pilot opportunity, when we're transacting the pilot opportunity, you're going to pick pilot A as a pilot. Product A as a pilot. And then when let's just say I clone it, and I clone it with no products. Now you have to go down to the product OPLI, and you have to pick a product. And with a validation rule, it can prevent you from picking the pilot product. And instead, you must pick one of the full contract choices.
So with a flow, you could actually say, okay, when I click the button, and I'm coming from an opportunity that has a pilot product on it, I'm going to clone the opportunity, and I'm going to go ahead and add the non-pilot version of the product for you. Like you could do all that in a single flow.
It could be done in a single flow. I absolutely agree. But in my thinking of the business is they will manually select.
Okay. Well, if it's a manual issue, then you could do the URL hack. You could do a process fired off of a checkbox or something like that.
Okay.
But
it sounds like in some. Go ahead.
If you want to get into multi-product kind of state, or if you want to get into a state where you have products that vary upon the actual cloning, then I would say you want to go flow. Okay.
All right. So, but for the sake of this case, it sounds like I could go with either method, either URL hack or flow.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, does anybody have a preference? Deepa, it sounded like you had a preference for flow.
I know.
I'm sorry, what was it?
Deepa, it sounded like you had a preference for flow in a case like this.
Well, once again, it depends on how you're initiating it, right? Like, and you said that you don't need to use products when you're cloning it.
Not at time of clone. How's that?
So I
not
still
as
think you might be able to accomplish this with a URL hack, and if you need help with the code, let me know. I'll be happy to give you pointers. But in the event that you don't want to do a URL hack, yes, a flow will work, and as long as you invoke it with a button. Remember, you also have to keep in mind what your users are going to want and what is your future going to look like.
Yep.
It's not just about now. Like I've run into some URL hacks because in the future things have changed, and you forget that you have a URL hack there. You know.
Right.
So keep the future in mind when you're making that decision. You've got multiple options.
Very good advice. Thank you. Thank you all. Was that Marty also responding there, or someone else?
Mark.
Oh, Mark. Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks, Jared.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right. We have about 8 minutes left. Would anybody else have any questions? Powell, you posted in the chat. Did you have a question? All right. Take that as a no. Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Is Steve still on the phone?
Steve Early?
Steve Early, yeah.
Yeah, he is.
Okay, maybe he's not. I have an update for him. I wanted to clarify what value he was passing to this P26 field. I'll put that in the chat feed.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, if nobody else has any questions, we can go ahead and end this early. And going once, twice. All right, sold. All right, well, thanks, everyone. Appreciate the time, MVPs, and great questions, everyone. And we will see you on the next one.
Have a good weekend.
Yay! Happy Friday.